Okay, Ed, I think we're good to go.
Very well. Everyone, if you will, please join me in a moment of silence, and then we will salute our national ensign. Now to salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have as our action item for the evening, review and approval of our minutes of the November 18th, 2020 meeting. Are there any comments regarding those minutes?
Don't see an issue, Ron.
Pardon?
Don't see an issue here.
I would look for a motion for approval then, please.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Bennett and a second from Mr. Weaver. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It is unanimously approved for the minutes as prepared. I have been in contact with Mr. Longenecker, who is the interested party for our first item of the agenda, Shank Road. He will be joining us, so I'd like to move ahead to the Bowman Road Church Street intersection. And we have our traffic engineer here by Zoom, I believe, Mr. Bauer.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to give you an update on the projects that we're working on for you. We did do some data collection at the Church and Bowman Road intersection. Thanks, Diane. She's going to bring up our presentation. This would be, there we go. So we completed a field view and set up a mile vision camera from October 22nd to the 26th. And there's ample evidence of large vehicle use, as you can see in the slide here, including tractor trailers. Most of the vehicles were landscaping trucks, and it is a very busy intersection. It's also a very tight intersection. Even larger passenger vehicles such as SUVs and pickup trucks cross the yellow line to make right turns onto Bowman. Looking at it from a purely geometric issue or solution, the intersection should be widened in order to accommodate these vehicles. Unfortunately, that starts to become the cure is worse than the disease. When we start to look at widening that intersection, we would have to look to widen that intersection to accommodate the vehicles that are using that intersection. So we would be looking to accommodate at the very least our largest fire apparatus, which generally turns about the same way as a large bus or a large truck. So when we start looking at that, the widening that would be required would be a significant impact on both sides of the road. Because if you look, you know, I don't know, you can't see my cursor, but there is, you know, this is a tractor trailer using this. That tractor trailer, if it finishes its turn, actually goes on the opposing property, just a bit off the edge of the road. When you look at the recreational vehicle, that, as you can see, certainly went across the property. So we're looking at it from the standpoint of, you know, what's best for the intersection and, you know, what's best for the properties in that area. We feel that even though there is some encroachment from time to time, the cure of widening would be much more painful in the end than fixing some of the minor or the proper damage that is occurring. Adding stone to the edge when vehicles track over is certainly less expensive than widening that entire corner on both sides. The widening would certainly take out the tree on the northeast corner, and then on the southeast corner, their driveway is very close to the curve, and that might be impacted also. So while we're looking at this from purely geometric, it would be a very challenging project to complete.
Okay, do we have any comments from the commission?
I guess I'm just trying to think of the school buses. I guess they probably haven't figured out that they only make a left turn and they don't seem to make a right turn from there. I think they probably have their bus routes adjusted to avoid a right turn like that truck is doing.
That's correct. We actually, going through those 4 or 5 days of data, we did see school buses making that right turn. We did not see them, making the left turn. We did not see them making the right turn.
So there's a workaround. It's just that probably most drivers don't realize it. Is there a possibility of a truck detour?
Well, there's a challenge to that because you do have the landscaping company right up the road. That's probably where that local delivery is going. That does not appear to be a through truck. And the heaviest amount of vehicles out there using the intersection really are work vehicles with landscaping type equipment and large trailers and things like that.
Chris, do we know where the landscape business is located?
It's right up the road,
Both. Which road, Church Street or Bowman?
Bowman.
It's actually that corner. It's pretty much, to my understanding, the whole northeast corner of this intersection is Stoner Industries or something, a name to that effect.
The driveway access is about halfway between Church and Nisley.
When this came before the township, let's say a year ago, probably a little more than that, by the homeowner on the southeast corner, most affected by this, the solution was, as Mr. Bauer mentioned, that we put some heavy number 4 size, I believe they used stone, which at least helped to support the edge of the roadway. There's somewhat of an embankment going into the property, which I think for the most part would deter trucks climbing or coming farther onto the lawn. Unfortunately, I believe Mr. Bauer has assessed the situation fairly accurately. As there isn't much to do, I did though have one more thought, that if we were to stripe the roadway edge in a very heavy line and maybe restripe the whole intersection in a way that draws attention to where one should be going, maybe that would help a bit.
I mean, that's something that could be looked into. I think the real issue is no matter what you do painting out there, it's such a tight intersection. It really, really is a tight intersection. So even adding pavement markings out there, I don't know that it's going to be very effective. We can certainly look into that. I think that one other thing that has been effective, other than the number 4 rock to stabilize that shoulder, there are some delineators along that, white delineators along that embankment that don't seem to be hit, at least from the field view, and they seem to guide a little bit. So I think while you're always going to have an instance like we have in those pictures because of the way the roadway is. The day-to-day is a little bit better. I don't think you're having where every car is going into the off the shoulder there.
I guess for now, what I'd like to say is in the interest of showing the resident that we are working and trying something, I would like us to look into striping or whatever else that could be helpful. And maybe it only helps a bit, but maybe it helps enough for the time being or whatever. I don't know if there are any other thoughts. So I guess we'll leave this that between Mr. Madonna and you, Chris, we could maybe just explore that possible solution or any others.
If I may just make a quick comment, we have widened that intersection, I believe, twice now. And I believe there are number 4s on the edge, and with the white delineators that we did place there, I haven't seen trucks climbing the embankment as much. One other thing is the resident that actually made this complaint has moved out of there and no longer lives there. I have spoken to the new owner, and I haven't heard a concern from him. So at this point, the delineators seem to help about the most. They could at least visually see them sticking up out of the ground. And I think we've only had them knocked down maybe twice since they were installed a couple of years ago. So we do try to maintain them, on a weekly basis to check them.
Well, then we don't have a solution looking for a problem, and I think what we might do is just continue in the mode that we have been until such time as the issue raises its head again and we need to address it. So I guess it might be appropriate if the commission will have a motion to that effect.
Motion to table.
Have a motion to table from Mr. Bennett. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Weaver. Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, none there. Thank you. We will now move on. And Mr. Longenecker has joined us. So if we can regress to the Shank Road update. You're still with us, Mr. Bauer. Please respond.
Sure. So thanks again. As requested, McMahon Associates reviewed the traffic operations associated with the roadway approaches at the Shanks Mill Bridge. The review was completed obviously because of a couple of complaints, several complaints about speeding, property damage, and certainly concerns regarding overweight vehicles using the covered bridge. The field views were conducted between October 8th and 13th, and traffic operations were video recorded using MyoVision units. Signing and while we were doing the field view, we did an inventory of the signing for the bridge posting. That posting, where the intersection of Shank Road and Spooky Nook at both sides, they are properly posted per PennDOT policy. So the advance warning signage is proper for the bridge. As we all know, the turning movements at the eastern side of the bridge are made difficult by both the narrow width of the road and the very short bridge approach, along with the fact that the bridge is perched. It sits up a little bit. So the vertical alignment of the bridge is also a challenge. Speeds approaching the bridge along Shank Road are a concern, and so is sight distance. So left turns going onto the bridge from Shank Road. There's evidence, obviously, of property damage on the eastern shoulder of Shank Road in the vicinity of the bridge. And that's caused twofold, according to the video review. It's being caused by vehicles obviously driving wide to make that left turn onto the bridge, but it's also caused by vehicles that are backing up after beginning their turn to allow vehicles to exit the bridge. So it's kind of twofold there. The right turns onto and off of the bridge are completed pretty well, and no real instances of the right turn coming off the bridge, crossing over the yellow line. So from the standpoint of trying to protect property and stop some of the ancillary uses of that property, and I'll get into that in a little bit, it's recommended that the widening of Schenck Road be considered. It's very tight through there. If we widen very slightly, a foot or two, and add an 8-inch curb, I would like to add an 8-inch curb, but we have to confirm that with field survey to make sure that we can still ensure proper drainage there. But that curb would help protect the property from future damages from the vehicles. Now, one of the other things that was very interesting, and we caught this multiple times on multiple days, especially the really nice fall days, during the data collection, we captured several people stopping to take photographs of the bridge. And that's great, except for their parking on private property to do that. So the installation of the curb would limit that, and it would limit people from pulling off onto that eastern property and parking to take photographs. The traffic control of the bridge is also a concern. As we all know, the bridge approach is actually stop controlled, and Schenck Road is free flow. And according to police records, there are a pattern of vehicles that travel east across the bridge and miss the stop sign. Several factors are causing that. You're in an enclosed bridge, and because of the way the bridge is perched and how you have to make that right turn, that stop sign there is very difficult to see. If you don't know it's there, and you can easily miss it. So one of the recommendations would be to switch the operation and change that to a stop control on Schenck Road and allow a free flow movement exiting the bridge. That will lessen the confusion that's going on. An all-way stop there was considered, but then now there's a concern that if there is a stop there, somebody does miss that stop sign, are we interjecting a more serious safety concern than what we have now? During the field view and the video recording, we specifically looked for overweight vehicles. So no actual weight data was collected to support the review. It was looking at the types and makeup of the vehicles that were using the bridge. The videos documented a significant number of work vehicles consisting of pickup trucks, utility vans. There's a couple school buses and larger vehicles that are using the bridge. The types and sizes of most of the vehicles using the bridge appear to be within the posted weight limit. It should be noted also that the video evidence does substantiate that there are car carriers using the bridge. What we saw, at least from the daylight hours, the video shows that these car carriers are empty. And as such, they're likely compliant with the load posting. I think it's probably best to recommend that we look to monitoring and enforcement of the vehicle weights at the bridge in the future. And I would say also coordination with the school district and trash haulers, just to make sure that they're using vehicles that comply with the load posting.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the commission?
So the recommendation at this point is to possibly widen the road where necessary and install an 8-inch curb
And changing stop signage.
and changing stop sign.
Correct. And then also enforcement of, looking at the vehicle weights.
I was wondering if, for the people taking photos, is there room to put a pull-off? I don't know if that would be a big help, but it might help a little bit.
A pull off for people that want to park there, or?
Yeah, like 1 or 2 cars that they can just pull off the road, take their pictures and not be messing up traffic.
Well, I think, that becomes a property issue, a property impact issue, because, widening that roadway would be, and adding, space for that would be pretty large area. For a parking space, you're normally looking at an 8-foot by 20-foot area, and then your tapers in. So it ends up being a pretty large area to put a pull off there.
I would like to address that question to Mr. Longenecker. I'm thinking of the area beside your barn on what I'll call the north side, that if that were to be paved with a 15-minute parking limitation sign or something of that effect, would you have any comment about that partial solution?
Well, I think,
Mr. Longenecker, you have to do the, thanks.
at this point, we have 4 or 5 signs on that side of the bridge in East Hempfield. You're proposing, from what I'm hearing, is to add 2 more, probably eliminate 1 at the end of the ramp. And I don't know, there's too many signs there now, visually, I think. The aesthetics of that bridge is pretty poor.
My thoughts were to try to provide an appropriate place where parking could be done so that they don't park in an inappropriate place. And you would get the benefit of some paving that would remain with your property for what it's worth. It's just a thought.
Yeah, well, right now, I have to change the parking area. In fact, I spoke with Cindy about this, and I was going to do that. And I've engaged somebody to do that along the side of the house because it's dangerous. And I have to change that. So to enlarge that, I think would become a problem.
We will.
And I also do not see this addressing the problem. And I saw it again today, although you said in your photographs and video coverage that you never saw a car carrier go across the bridge with cars. And today, in fact, as I was pulling out of my driveway, that happened. A car carrier went through there with a car on it and scraped. Part of the problem is these videos and photo coverages that you are talking about are limited in time. And I can tell you from history, I know what has gone through there, and a lot of vehicles are overweight. And really the problem is vehicles with trailers behind them. And I've never seen a school bus go through that bridge ever, and I've been there for 40-some years, and I've never seen a trash truck go through it. So I think you can eliminate that from your thought process.
Okay.
They've
So, and I don't disagree that there are times that we're not going to see everything. I would, I don't have the picture of that, but here, let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Diane, can you have me allow me to share screens? Oh, there we go.
You should be able to.
Okay. Share. So here's some of the things, we did see, like I said, during the daylight hours, we saw a car carrier that was empty. You know, we got a trash truck right there. I don't have the picture of the school bus, but I know that there was a school bus out there. You know, it wasn't a big school bus. It was one of the shorter school bus, but you know, those short school buses end up being around, you know, 9 to 12,000 pounds, or 9 to 12 tons, sorry. So, you know, like you said, there's evidence out there. Unfortunately, I think what has to happen is there has to be enforcement, and maybe we do reach out to the auto auction and remind them that the covered bridge is not posted for, you know, the vehicle loads.
Well, part of the problem is the trailers, and I know you talked about a curb, and I know that some of those carriers caused damage on my property just from the tail of those trailers, you know, sweeping across the ground.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying that,
There's things
you
up.
know, a little bit of widening would go a long way to help that, because it is a very narrow road. But it's also, I think, adding a curb there, if we can do it, and adding, you know, making sure that we can still, or not, make sure we don't cause a ponding issue while doing it. I think that could help immensely.
Mr. Longenecker, how would you feel about some additional footage being taken to widen the road?
I proposed that to you over a year ago,
Very well.
and I'd be in favor of some mitigation there, but really the problem is the trailers. And we're not talking about doing anything about that. So you widen the road, you encourage the trailers to go through. Cars are not the problem generally. It's bigger equipment.
You said there was a scraping.
Yes, I could take you to my property right now and show you where topsoil was torn off.
Okay, so it's a dragging scraping.
Well, yeah, it's the rear wheels, you know, and a lot of those beds are extended,
Yeah.
and they just tear things up.
Okay.
A question for Chris. Chris, can the number of axles be restricted on a road like this?
Yes, there has to be an alternate route, but we can certainly look into a restriction on axles. Right now, it's like I said, it's posted for weight. And I think by allowing some widening through there, even if you post it for number of axles, you're going to have the errant vehicle that's going to do this. So by accommodating this, widening a little bit and accommodating that trailer, I think is a better solution. You know, right down the road, again, there's a nursery. So trailers are going to be using this.
And when you talk about a trailer, you're talking about multi-vehicle trailer or a 1 or 2 car trailer? Or car carrier, I mean.
We've seen both. We've seen the one person, you know, 1 car trailer, which probably meets the load posting.
Right.
And then we have seen, like the photo showed, the multi-car trailer. Most of the time, at least what we saw, they were empty because probably because I don't know that there's too many that can make it under that clearance full.
But whether they're loaded, but a multi-car trailer, whether they're loaded or not, is going to have difficulty making the turn coming out off the bridge, correct?
Yes, it will, no matter what, yes.
So, but a smaller car carrier, 1 or 2 perhaps, may not. It's probably not the problem. It's the multi-car carriers, empty or full, that seem to be the issue here.
Correct.
Okay. So is there some way we can limit them on that road and on that bridge based upon like I said, instead of weight, axles.
There is evidence, or there is a precedence to doing it from axles. Again, it does come down to enforcement though also.
Understood, right, so,
Right.
and again, if we're just talking about maybe a two-axle truck and trailer, even if it has cars on it, it's probably not gonna be the issue that a empty multi-car trailer would be. And it seems to me, and I'm not a traffic expert, obviously, that if we start by limiting those, or that type of vehicle, it might be a good start, if that's possible. I don't know that it's possible.
Well, I'll also go back to the fact that there are passenger vehicles that are having trouble making these turns, especially the left onto the bridge.
But, okay,
Right.
imagine we do have some passenger vehicles that can't make it, but that's not the issue that we're trying to deal with here, I don't believe. Maybe,
Well, they're making as much damage as everybody else is. They're pulling off on the shoulder also while they're driving. They drive wide.
well, perhaps a widened road with a curb may help that issue for smaller vehicles and smaller trucks.
Given the time and the fact we didn't get going, I'd like to bring this with a tabling to McMahon Associates to develop the plan of what they feel would be appropriate widening, showing the curb detail. Probably the stop sign change is appropriate. And bring it back, and this commission can recommend to the full board that the authorization is given to McMahon to develop a scope that can be reviewed more going forward, and we could move closer to a solution. Is that satisfactory to the commission?
Mr. Chairman, if I could also ask that McMahon to look at a road restriction based upon axles,
That
if
could be,
if that's possible.
that would all be part of their
Right.
development.
Okay, so moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
Second, Mr. Weaver. Thank you. We'll keep moving and we will eventually achieve a solution. Thank you. We have a Nisley Road traffic calming. Again, Mr. Bauer, if you would, please.
Okay, so we were provided information from police department based on the posted speed limits out on Nisley Road. The posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour, and in the northbound direction, the speed study noted that the average speed is around 37 miles an hour. The 85th percentile speed, that's the governing speed where that's where we judge 85% of the people are driving. That's how we normally set speed limits, where they should be somewhere around 10 miles an hour, should be within 10 miles an hour of that speed. It's also showing that drivers are exceeding the speed limit by 88% of the drivers are doing that. That's on the downhill side. On the uphill side, it's not any better. The average speed is a little lower, it's 34 miles an hour. The 85th percentile is 39 miles an hour. And then 81% of the drivers are exceeding the speed limit. This is a residential area. It's probably posted at 25 miles an hour because it's a residential area. So having speeds in excess of 15 miles an hour over the speed limit indicates that there is a speeding problem. So taking this as a stepwise fashion, because we're on some vertical grade here, there's some serious concern about doing any sort of vertical enhancement, such as a speed hump or bump in this area. We're also concerned about even using some sort of a chicane where we deflect the car a little bit to make people slow down because of the vertical grade. This is not like Farmingdale Road, which is almost flat in that area where we put the speed humps in, especially along Farmingdale, but also in Briarcrest. Those areas are flat and really lend themselves to the speed hump and table scenario. Looking for this as a stepwise fashion, one of the things that we're seeing that's very, very effective is your speed signs. What we do is, put these signs out there. They're LED flashers. When you're above the speed limit, it flashes until and you lower your speed to the posted speed limit. They're very, very effective. We're also recommending as a first step before we go to investigating and deploying the LED signage, because they are expensive, even though they can be portable. The LED signage runs about $5,000 a piece, installed in brackets and a solar panel, and they can be moved around. And if we did go that route, they could be used and should only be used for a period of time to enforce the speeds. Because if you leave them out all the time, what ends up happening is people just ignore them like they're ignoring the speed signs right now. So it's something that can be moved around the township and then go back to Nisley Road after a period of time. But the first thing I think we should investigate is adding pavement legends to the roadway that say, slow 25 miles an hour. It's important to reinforce it. And I think that they have been proven to be effective. And I think it's worth taking this first step as adding the pavement legends.
I, for one, would admit when I do see pavement markings or things like that, or the LEDs, I at least look at my speedometer to see what I'm doing. And it is helpful to maybe remind motorists where they should be. Any other comments here from the commission?
I agree with everything Chris says, and I think the pavement markings would be a good first step, without a doubt.
I'll take that as a motion.
I agree with that.
And I'll take that as a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Bauer and Mr. Madonna.
So
Can we count that this will be taken care of? Weather permitting, it'll be a while.
Yeah, for my part, it may take a while before it's warm enough to spray them on the ground. The machines just don't work well, in 30-degree weather. So as soon as we are able to, we can get them painted on the ground. It would be a question as do we want to purchase the stencils for this, or do we want to subcontract the painting of the lines to a company? I would be in favor of purchasing the stencils. That way we could do that at our leisure instead of waiting for a company to come out and do it.
I agree, and I'm preparing a note when we give the traffic commission report to the supervisors later to seek permission to get stencils and also see what the tenor would be regarding maybe buying one of the LED monitors that we could, as we have this, I'll call it an acerbating problem across the township, across the world. I think we need to have some of these preparations at hand. So that's what I'll do, and we may conclude that discussion on that matter.
Before we move on, Mr. Bauer, what's the approximate cost of those units?
I believe it was $5,000.
Okay.
Forgive me, I should have called for any comment from the assembly here or in Zoom. Anyone have any comments? Okay, very well. We have three other items, if we can expedite them, please. One is from Mr. Walter Burkhardt. He requests handicap parking space on Elizabeth Street in Landisville for his special need.
I don't think Mr. Burkhardt is here this evening, he is elderly. The reason why he needs the handicap parking space. This property is very close to the post office, opposite side of the street. He has constant traffic because of that. The post office has parking issues. And he has a very short driveway. He did provide for the doctor's note. And he'd like the handicap space in front of his property
The recommendation staff would be
to allow.
sorry, I just got to allow. Recommendations staff would be to allow.
I personally think it's a very reasonable request and one that the township should be willing to accept. The only consideration that always occurs in a matter like this is when Mr. Burkhardt moves away, sometimes these conditions don't revert to their previous status. However, I don't want to be burdened with that. I think we want to accommodate Mr. Burkhardt's request. And Mr. Madonna, you would be able to take care of that, please?
Yes, we can handle that, this week yet, if I do have the signs in stock. I would assume that we were just placing this right from his driveway directly in front of the house. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, you know exactly what he wants, fine.
Yes.
We'll defer to staff on that, please, and we thank you.
Quick question, is that going to take away parking at the post office?
Yes.
Okay, is that-
Well, it's public street parking. Yes, it's taking going to take one space away. It's not post office parking, it's public street parking.
There's parking on both sides of that Elizabeth, right?
Correct.
Very well, thank you. Next item is the process to deal with resident traffic concerns. And this is, I guess, a generalization, Mr. McMahon or Mr. Bauer.
Yes, yeah, we can put the slide back up. I can go through it very quickly. And this is all up for discussion. I thought this would be a good process to follow. What we could do is start with when a complaint is received. So when a complaint is received by the police department, using their equipment can complete a speed study. Once we have that data in hand, if the speeds are in excess of 10 miles an hour, then that speed data gets forwarded to the staff. The staff and the traffic engineer review the speed study and results and determine whether or not traffic calming can be deployed, what tactics could be deployed, and then take a measured approach using low cost options first, like we just did on Nisley Road with the pavement markings. Then I think it's important to have buy-in for the speeds, for the tactics that we're going to use, and it makes sense to have a meeting with residents. So one of the things that has come up is, other considerations. When should we request a petition? How do we really ensure all the resident buy-in? Is that the petition, right? Do we say that, you have to have 80% of your street buy-in? And another thing that might be very helpful is if we spend some time planning out where traffic calming could be deployed and what level of traffic calming we could put out there. Looking at your roadway systems and saying, this is a candidate for speed humps or speed tables. where like on Nisley, we wouldn't do that and the reasons why. I think it might be helpful. And then that's what I think would be a good traffic calming process. So I open it up to discussion.
Yes, well, I'll initiate and take off on that. There is one thing I believe this must include for it to be successful and appropriate. And I will admit that having learned a lesson in my responsibilities here over some other issues we've had to try to deal with, and that is that we don't take a problem from one street and move it to other streets, and then the problem exists in another area. We need to be extremely careful, I believe, how we administer this type of change. And it'll be difficult, but I believe we can do that if we're conscious of it.
I just had one quick thing, so I realize we're almost out of time, but I would like to, at our next meeting, get into the question about the petitions and do they really serve a purpose, given how easy it is and what it costs to do the speed study? So I know we don't have time to get into it, but I'd just like to maybe get everybody thinking about that.
Yes, thank you. Last new business item we have is speeding concern on Main Street, Landisville. Is Mr. Gamble with us? Please state your name, address, and
Yeah, and to clarify, it's Ryan Gamber, Gamber. Live at 279 Main Street in Landisville. I've been there for about 15 years. There's been a lot of accidents recently. Just in the last 6 months, several total vehicles, a car laying upside down in the middle of Main Street. That's just while I've been home. Who knows how many more have happened that I haven't been home, I haven't heard. And so then my wife noticed on Facebook that somebody a block down the street in the 300 block has also commented about several accidents recently. I emailed several of you some pictures from that recently. And ironically, while I was saying that email, a rear-ending accident happened just 3 doors down from the exact same spot. So there's been a lot of accidents lately on Main Street. Two main concerns I have are the speeds. As the police chief stated in the email correspondence, that when they reviewed the accidents, it seemed like the cars were traveling within the recommended speed limit. But my question is, why is the speed limit in Landisville 35? Every other small town is 25. We have CVS, Turkey Hill, Miss Kaylee's has parking spaces that back out directly into Main Street. We had the Black Knight. We had the weird intersection at Bank and Elizabeth and Main Street. We have all these weird things within a few blocks there. And there just keeps being accidents. And for some reason, our speed limit is 35. And it makes it very feeling unsafe, just trying to pull out those intersections or even trying to walk in the sidewalks in that area. Yeah, and just looking at local towns, Marietta, Columbia, East Petersburg, Lititz, Manheim, they're all 25. But Main Street and Landisville is 35.
Can you give me a landmark where you live?
I'm close to the memorial clock.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right in the heart of Landisville.
Yeah, yep, right there, right in the heart. To me, especially when the police chief says we have these accidents are happening, but people are driving close to the speed limit, to me that says the speed limit may not be reasonable for a few block area. I'm wondering from Camp Meeting Road to the other end of Salunga, I mean, shouldn't that really be 25 like all of the small towns? The other issue is pedestrian safety. There's only one set of crosswalks from the health campus to the other end of Salunga. That's at the traffic light at Turkey Hill. I live right by the clock, so I see the students trying to cross Main Street to walk to the high school. And that's a busy, crazy intersection with weird angles. A lot of people, because it's an angled street, they treat it like an on-ramp on the Main Street coming out of Elizabeth instead of actually stopping there. There's no traffic markings, there's no stop lines, there's no center lines, there's nothing showing where traffic should go. I talked to Mr. Madonna about that, and he commented that it's considered a residential neighborhood there. Maybe that's technically the case, but it seems odd that one of the main roads that leads to a school, plus the post office, plus all the other businesses, is considered residential, so they don't do markings there. Well, I think we need some sort of traffic markings that vehicles stay where they need to go, and also crosswalks so that the students can cross. The number of students that cross now is moderate, and you see more than a dozen crossing at that one spot every morning when all the buses and traffic's going. Once they finish the warehouse on Broad Street with the apartments in it, who knows how many more dozens of kids will be trying to walk across, trying to walk to school. So both the speeds on the street and ways for pedestrians to cross, I think really needs to be investigated.
Mr. Bauer, could you give us any guidance on what will be required to make that change? This is a state road section, I believe.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, it is a state road section. We're gonna have to coordinate with PennDOT on any changes out there. If the speed limit, if the data shows that it's within 10 miles an hour of the current speed limit, there's not a whole lot that's gonna change. PennDOT will stick with their rules, which is if the 85th percentile speed is within 10 miles as opposed to speed limit, they're not gonna change it. There's speeding in general has gotten worse. It does not. It has a lot to do with the situation we're in right now. There's a lot less traffic on the road. People seem to are distracted or whatever's going on. People seem to be speeding a lot, and unfortunately, I think part of it is the time we're in right now. We've been seeing a lot of high speeds on our roadways, and we are seeing a rise in crashes where it's a little bit backwards to what we've seen in the past, where as volume drops, so do accidents. That's not the case recently. There's been a lot of anecdotal evidence that the speeds have increased immensely in the last 9 or 45 weeks, to be certain. Hopefully things go a little bit better in the future as that things calm down a little bit. But I do feel for everybody that drives on the roadways right now, because people are speeding. I'm sure Chief has seen it in his line of work every day that speeds are just up.
I am on the road a good deal, and the driver behavior, in my opinion, has become a pandemic. And the problem is, how can we cure it? Enforcement cannot cure it. It needs something more than that.
Yeah.
And I'm at a loss as to what to do other than some of the good practices that make sense to provide the safest driving situations for people. So hopefully we reduce casualties, but yeah, it's a problem. But my question to you, Mr. Bauer, is, well, okay, so we're saying that it could go up to 44 miles per hour through Landisville.
On sidewalks on the sides and houses 12 feet from the curb, and that's crazy.
Which I only suggest as a matter of levity because it's insane.
Yeah, but people do it.
Could we not change it to a 25 mile per hour as requested and get PennDOT's hopefully concurrence with doing that?
No, I think what the best course of action would be to involve PennDOT in it, explain the situation. They will, since it is their roadway, they have in the past done their own speed studies. And, our hands are a little tied in this because it is a PennDOT roadway.
It got noticeably worse after they repaved it 2 years ago also. That really increased the speeds. It made it flatter and it made the shoulders almost narrower and the lanes just appear wider now. And that really seemed to pick up the speeds.
A recent study has found that the better the roads are, the faster people feel entitled to drive, and it's true. In my ignorance, how do we get involved with PennDOT? Is that you, Mr. Bauer, or is that staff here?
We sent a letter request to PennDOT, is that not the case?
All right, staff, I would request or ask for a motion from the commission. Can we request a speed review of the Landisville Village?
I can ask a question. What would a speed review have to reveal that would allow to provide for a 25 mile per hour speed limit? Chris?
They may look at it from the standpoint of set and setting. And they may look at it as this is a residential area. But that would be up to them to determine.
Well, why don't we just, rather than do a speed study, why don't we just request them to reduce the speed limit on that, on Harrisburg Pike from point to point and see what they come back with?
Would that initiate the study?
Yes, that would initiate the study. They don't do anything without data.
Okay.
And it's a weird time too, because traffic data is very difficult right now to collect because of the travel restrictions we're under right now.
Yeah.
Well, then, I'd like, and I'll make a motion from the chair that we ask staff to request lowering the speed through Landisville Village from 35 to 25 and see what their response is. Is there a second?
There is, second.
A second from Mr. Bennett. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
I also think, again, to address Mr. Gamber's points, that from a traffic marking standpoint, we need to do a better job marking the crosswalks on Harrisburg Pike and Elizabeth. And where necessary, I think we should install these signs that sit up in the middle of the road that caution people. You may not be able to do it on Harrisburg Pike, I understand that, but that caution people to slow down and that there's a crosswalk in place. I think we should identify the crossing points where that makes sense and move forward with that effort also.
Yes, thank you. That is important.
Mr. LaFever.
If I may comment real quick, the crosswalks at that intersection are very difficult there at Elizabeth because there is only sidewalk on one side of the street. There is not sidewalk on the dentist side. Knowing where would you actually have people cross there? There is no crosswalk to the center where the island is for the clock. And it's just so difficult to decide where they should walk to, because most of the people who are coming across there are parking on Main Street to get to the school. And we've tried to get people not to do that and park at the school parking lots, but they simply refuse. For whatever reasons, they don't want to park in the school parking lots. But the kids park up and down Main Street. They walk through the parking lot of the dentist office. They cross anywhere they feel. But again, there's just no place there in that intersection to properly put a crosswalk. There may be one place to put it from the sidewalk where Elizabeth begins over across Bank Street, and that seems to be the only place there is sidewalk. So it's very difficult to sign that properly.
Perhaps we could provide a yellow brick road for people to use certain points in the crosswalk process,
And in my mind, just having markings on the road just makes people more alert for people crossing the road. Like, people are pulling out the traffic light there and accelerating up towards Salunga. They aren't thinking, well, this is a busy place where people are crossing. Even if they don't use the crosswalk, at least they're thinking pedestrians.
And I think you heard earlier about pavement markings and,
Yep.
So again, I'm not saying what should be done or where they should go, but I think we should look at that whole area.
I'm an engineer. I enjoy this stuff. I welcome giving any input anytime. You guys have my information, so please reach out.
If my memory is correct, when Church Street is reconstructed in the next couple of years, there may be some more sidewalk sections provided that we can accommodate this crosswalk need. So, Mr. Gamber, I hope that you heard what you wanted to hear, at least in part.
Appreciate you guys working on it. Thank you.
We have,
Mr. LaFever, can I add something to this?
yes, please, Chief.
Yeah, on that memo that I submitted, it give you some information about the crosswalks, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I share a concern with the crashes, but not those that are involving speed, but parking in the 300 block at the crest of the hill by Sardina Dentist. For traffic going westbound, there's typically cars parked at the top of that hill, and I think the number in the last 6 years have been 7 crashes. They don't seem to involve speed. It's inattentive drivers, drunk drivers that come over that hill. I would recommend, although the residents that live there may not like it, but I don't think that there should be parking on that side of the street. There's some pictures that I had posted in the memo that you should all have. I don't know whether that should be part of the study by PennDOT. If the restriction is going to be authorized by PennDOT, I think the crosswalks would also have to be authorized by PennDOT because of it being a state road. So maybe staff should draft a letter to PennDOT involving all these issues rather than just the speed.
Mrs. Schweitzer, you can include those things, please. Thank you, Chief Scott.
The Sharon Drive, we are still awaiting a resident petition. And apparently we have not gotten that. So the one thing that we should address is any public comment from residents of East Hempfield Township or property owners relative to the traffic commission and traffic conditions in the township. Anyone on Zoom? Nothing evident? It seems that we've completed the agenda 14 minutes beyond our limit. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Weaver?
Mr. LaFever?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a, yeah.
We were here to speak up, just
Please come forward, give your name, address.
Jennifer Basler, 2725 Spring Valley Road.
Spring Valley.
We had been here in the summer to discuss a speed bump or speed, I don't know, control between Chestnut Valley and Dorsia Road.
Yes.
And one of the questions we did have when you recommended a petition was, given the fact that going door to door right now is a little uncomfortable for people, is it possible for us to send out a communication and have people give us via email their name, address, and vote? Or does it have to be a signature that
Whatever
we,
you'd like to accept.
I believe staff can accommodate that, yes.
okay.
Yes.
And I think what you had said is that we would be on the agenda for a traffic study in that zone that I'm speaking of.
Petition would initiate that would.
So the petition has to be first
Yeah.
before the, okay, because some of the points that we just heard, especially the repaving, I guess Spring Valley's up for repaving, and that's one of our big concerns, is that it's going to be a speed zone through there. And same thing, we don't have the sidewalks where we are. We have a lot of people, even traveling. We've become a cut through for the health campus and other residents, but we've noticed too that when you are traveling, I guess it would be eastbound, the driveways, even this time of year with the leaves off the trees, but even, worse when the leaves are on the trees, you can't see those driveways coming down. And I think people just think it's this nice country road and they start to pick up their speed, and we are, having trouble getting in and out of our driveways. We're at a cul-de-sac. We have young kids who are learning to drive. You're afraid to let them pull out. So all of those things are a great concern for us. So if we could move forward with the petition being accepted via email, that would be great. And we would just forward it to you, Cindy, I would
Yes.
presume. Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say one very quickly. Given the situation with people don't answer their doors and it's cold out, can we just take it as a matter of faith that there probably is a speeding problem? And considering how little effort it is to do the speed study, just go ahead and do it?
The speed study was done. It's now a question of what the residents want.
I'm sorry?
It's a question of what the residents want.
Right, but if it is a speeding problem, then we should probably do something about it regardless. And if it turns out there isn't a speeding problem, then it would save them the bother of doing a petition in the first place. So I think we could pretty easily determine either there is a speeding problem or there isn't, just, a quick speed study.
Well, and the other thing I would say is, the speed limit on that road right now is
It's 25.
25. I think you heard tonight perhaps a good first step in dealing with your issue, and that is pavement markings. One way or the other. We can certainly start that and certainly do that. I think that would probably make sense. It's a similar situation to Nisley Road, 25 mile per hour speed limit, and we have speeding issues,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm.
That would probably be the first thing that we would do.
Okay.
And we haven't really talked about it,
Sure.
but it's probably one of the first things that you'll see us do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming, all. Now I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Weaver, I believe, do we have a second?
You do.
Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Point of note for those attending via Zoom that want to attend the Board of Supervisors meeting, this Zoom meeting will end and then the Board of Supervisors meeting will be started. So make sure you log into that link.